Heaven Official's Blessing. Chapter 24. Audio source: WuXiaWorldAudiobook.com. Dallying Hualien. Nightfall in Sinner's Pit. The more the Mudface tried to entice them, the more Xie Lian became alarmed. "Everyone stand back, don't go near him, and don't listen to a single word he says." The crowd broke up and hurriedly moved away. The Mudface continued to chuckle. "There's no need to be so mean. I'm a human too, I won't hurt you." Just then, one of the merchants suddenly snuck back to the field, perhaps thinking he must still bring back some herbs for the wounded. He bent down to pick up the bushel of ferns he dropped in fright earlier, but the Mudface spun and spotted him, a glint in its spinning eyes. "Oh no," Xie Lian thought, rushing towards the man. "Don't pick that up. Come back." But it was too late. The Mudface opened its mouth and a long, blood-red thing slithered out. It was a long tongue. Xie Lian grabbed the merchant by his collar and backed up, but the tongue that flew out was freakishly lengthy and barged right into the merchant's ear. Xie Lian felt the body in his hold convulse violently, the merchant's limbs writhed nonstop, and the man let out a short agonizing scream before falling to the ground. That long tongue dug out a large chunk of something bloody from his ear and brought it back to the Mudface's mouth. The Mudface happily chewed and cackled, his laugh so disturbingly loud it filled the entire palace grounds. "Ha-ha-ha. So good, so good, so delicious, so delicious, so delicious. I was so hungry, so hungry." His voice was sharp and shrill, both eyeballs bulging and bloodshot, horrid and obnoxious. This man, who had been buried for over 50 years in the grounds of an evil-filled kingdom, had already been molded into its soil and became something other than human. Xie Lian loosened his hold on the deceased merchant, his entire arm shaking. He was about to attack the repulsive monster when the Mudface screamed again. "General! General! They're here! They're here!" A deafening cry more savage than beasts blared in the distance. A dark shadow dropped from the sky, and landed heavily in front of Xie Lian. The entire palace grounds quaked in its landing. When it slowly stood up, the crowd was jailed in its enormous shadow. This man was gigantic. His face was as grim as steel, his expression ferocious and turbulent, like the face of a beast. A thin layer of armor draped from his shoulders and reached down at least 9 feet. Rather than a man, one could say he's more like a walking wolf. Behind him, more and more similar forms appeared. 1, 2, 3. Over 10 of these men jumped off the roofs of the palace and surrounded them. Each one of these men were large like horses, built like beasts, and carried the sharp teeth-filled mace on their shoulders. They might as well be werewolves. When they encircled around the intruders in the garden, it was as if a large steel cage had fallen upon them. They were the soldiers of Ban Yu. These soldiers emanated a black aura, undoubtedly no longer alive. Xie Lian was tense, Rue in position ready to attack. However, when those Ban Yu soldiers saw them, they didn't rush in to kill. Instead they raised their heads and roared in crazed laughter, and howled in a foreign language. The sound of their words were ghastly, guttural and heavy and tongue-rolling. It was the language of Ban Yu. Although it had been 200 years and Xie Lian had pretty much forgotten the language. He did review it with Sanling earlier in the general's tomb, and the words uttered by those soldiers were loud, simple and vulgar, so they weren't difficult to understand. He heard the soldiers call the first man, General. Their conversations filled with words such as "take them away" and "won't kill for now," and Xie Lian took a deep breath to force himself to relax. He said in a low voice, "Everyone, don't panic. These Ban Yu soldiers won't kill us for now. It seems they want to take us somewhere else. Don't do anything rash. I can't guarantee I'll be able to fight them. We'll figure this out as we go." It was clear that those soldiers would be hard to fight, each of them thicker than the next. Even with Rue in hand, suffocating one would probably take a lot out of him, never mind 10. With mortals with him, Xie Lian couldn't do anything bold and could only remain vigilant and protect them the best he can. Sandling didn't say anything, and the others had already lost all nerves. Even if they want to do anything rash, they wouldn't know how, and could only nod tearfully. Next to them, the Mudface screamed again. General, General, please let me out. I detained your enemies. Let me go home. I want to go home. Seeing the Banyu soldiers, the Mudface became hysterical, screaming and crying, blabbering nonsense with some Banyu words mixed in, no doubt learned from the many years he spent buried here. The massive 9-feet man they called General seemed to have found the squirming Mudface deeply disgusting, and swung his mace towards him, smashing his face into a bloody mess, the teeth of his mace piercing his brains. When he pulled up his mace again, the entire body was pulled out with it, fulfilling his wish of, "Let me out." And the body that was unearthed was not a full human body, but a skeleton. The merchants screamed in fright. The Mudface, having crumpled off the mace all bloody, seemed to have frozen in fear too after seeing his own body. "What's this? What's this?" "It's your body," Xie Lian reminded him, seeing that the Mudface was numbed in disbelief. This man had been buried in the desert for over 50 to 60 years. His body fertilized the Shanwei ferns and cleaned him of his flesh with only bones remaining. "How can this be?" the Mudface cried. "My body isn't like this. This is not my body." His cries were trilling, but Xie Lian only thought him tragic and terrifying, shook his head and turned away. Next to him, Sandling laughed mockingly. "Is it only now you're not used to your body? What was that thing that came out of your mouth earlier? You didn't think that odd?" The Mudface countered immediately. "That wasn't odd. It was just a tongue a bit longer than average." "Yes, sure, just that much longer, maybe." Sandling's voice was full of ridicule, but didn't care to chat more with the monster. "That's right," the Mudface cried. "It's only just that much longer. It's all because I spent decades trying to live off of insects, forcing my tongue to extend. That must be how it came to be like this." Perhaps he was indeed still human when he was first buried, and did his best to survive by swallowing insects with his tongue, but he became less human over time, and his tongue grew longer, eating more than just insects but worse things. Having been buried for so long, however, he couldn't see his own true form, and couldn't accept nor believe that he was no longer human. The Mudface kept trying to assure a non-listening audience, "There are other people who have long tongues, not just me." Sandling laughed again, but Xie Lian could feel chills listening to him laugh. Xie Lian thought that sometimes when this boy laughs, there is a certain cruelty hidden beneath the smile, a coldness that could rip off flesh. "Do you think you're still human?" Sandling asked. Hearing the question, the Mudface became agitated. "Of course I'm human. I'm human." The Mudface screamed and tried to move his white, bony limbs at the same time, as if trying to crawl away. Finally unearthed, he was mad with joy, cackling, "I'm going home. I'm going home." Ha! Crack! The Banyu General seemed to finally have had enough of this monster's shrills, and crushed his bones in one step, killing any more of his. "I'm human." After trampling the Mudface, the General roared to the others. Then, the Banyu soldiers all raised their maces and growled to Xie Lian's group, and started herding them out of the palace. Xie Lian walked up front with Sandling still following close behind. Despite being ushered by ruthless Banyu soldiers, the boy's step was still light and casual, as if taking a stroll. Xie Lian had been meaning to find opportunities to talk to him, and after a while when the Banyu soldiers went back to conversing amongst themselves, Xie Lian talked in a low voice. "Those Banyu soldiers call their leader General. I wonder who it is." As expected, Sandling had answers to all of his questions. The general at the time of the fall of their kingdom. His name, translated in Hanzi, one is Kamo. Kamo? Xie Lian wondered at the odd name. "That's right," Sandling said. "Apparently it was because he was awfully weak when he was young and was often bullied. He rallied and built his strength trang with large stone mortar plates, and got his name thus. Xie Lian rubbed his forehead and thought, so he's a Hulk. Sanling continued. Legends have it that Kamo was the strongest warrior in the history of Banyu, 9 feet tall and extremely powerful. He was a loyal supporter of the head priestess. Did he continue to support her despite having opened the fortress gates to the enemy? Xie Lian asked. That's hard to say, Sanling replied. If Kamo still followed the head priestess' orders even in death, then they were most likely being ushered to where she is. If there were more Banyu soldiers there, how could they escape? How could they deliver the Shangyue Fern to the wounded within 24 hours? All they could do now was go with the flow and adapt to any situation that arises. Xie Lian walked and mulled and noticed that General Kamo had been leading them to a remote place on the far end of the fortress. When they stopped and Xie Lian looked up, a colossal wall stood before him like a giant. Their destination was the Sinner's Pit. Although Xie Lian had lived in the Banyu area for a time, he rarely entered town, and had never gotten near the Sinner's Pit. Seeing it this close, Xie Lian's heart started pounding. The mud-yellow walls had a set of stairs along the outside. And while climbing up to the top, Xie Lian scrutinized the pit and tried to look over the depths until he finally understood why his heart was pounding. It wasn't that this was a place of torture and cruelty, and it wasn't his worry over everyone getting pushed in. It was feeling the palpitations of a very powerful array at work. There was a strong array drawn around the entire Sinner's Pit, and this array only has one purpose: to prevent the fallen from ever surfacing. That meant even if a rope or a ladder was set down into the pit, whoever tried to climb up from the bottom would get cut off halfway through and get thrown right back into the bottom. Xie Lian impassively used the wall as support to climb up the stairs, but was really feeling up the make of the wall. He found that although it looked like the wall was built with mud or concrete, it was actually a much stronger stone, probably enforced with a layer of magic. When they reached the end of the stairs and came to the top of the pit, standing along the wall leaves the only word to describe the sight was awe. The entire Sinner's Pit was formed by 4 encircling great walls. Each wall was about 30 feet in length, 20 feet in height, and 4 feet in thickness. At the very top of each wall there was nothing, neither gazebos nor railings. Within the enclosure was a deep abyss without a bottom in sight, and with the growing night there was only blackness and a chilling smell of blood wafting in the air coming from below. No one dared looking down while walking along the railingless eaves that's tens of feet above ground. After a while they could see the pole that stood in the center, and atop the pole hung a corpse. It was the same one they spotted earlier. The corpse was of a small, black-clad girl, tattered and head bowed. Xie Lian had known that this pole was used especially for hanging criminals that deserved shame and humiliation. Usually the prison guards would strip the criminals of their clothing and hang the body naked. The criminals would die from starvation or dehydration, and after death the corpse would be left to flail in the wind, burn under the sun, and rot in the rain. When the corpse had rotten completely through, it would fall into the pit itself. The corpse of that girl didn't seem to be rotten, so it must have not been long since she died. Perhaps it was a local girl that the soldiers captured. To do such a vulgar thing to a young girl, Xie Lian felt thoroughly disgusted. Zhao, Tiansheng and the others' faces turned white seeing the sight, and paused in their steps, afraid to go forward. Kamo didn't bother pushing them onwards either, but turned toward the pit and howled. Why is he howling? Xie Lian wondered, but his question was soon answered. From the bottom of the dark pit came a chain of growls in response to the howling. It was like the roars of beasts, bellows of tsunamis, wails of monsters, hundreds and thousands of cries exploding in the ear. The walls trembled with the noise and made those standing on the eaves lose balance. Xie Lian could clearly hear the sounds of rocks and debris falling within. Only criminals get thrown into the Sinner's Pit, Xie Lian thought. Are those the souls of the dead answering Kamo? Kamo howled again and Xie Lian paid more attention by listening. This time, Kamo wasn't making meaningless noise, and it wasn't curses either. Instead, it was encouragement. Xie Lian was very sure he heard the words, "My brothers." After howling, Kamo turned to the soldiers watching Xie Lian and the others, and roared another command. Xie Lian understood. He had said, "Just throw in two and detain the rest." The others might not have understood what was being said, but the actions of those soldiers were not hard to guess, and everyone looked pale like ghosts. Xie Lian saw that a couple couldn't even stand upright anymore, shaking from fear, and stepped forward. He said in a small voice, "Don't worry. If anything happens I will go forward first." Xie Lian thought if they must all fall, then he might as well be the first one to check things out. It couldn't be worse than venomous snakes and beasts, menacing ghosts and demons. He couldn't die from falling, he couldn't die from poison, he couldn't die from bites, and he couldn't die from getting hit. As long as it wasn't some pool of corpse-dissolving water, his body shouldn't be damaged too horribly. Besides, he had Rue with him. Even if he might not be able to escape from the array, he could still use it to catch the others that'd fall after him. Kamo had said, "Detain the rest," meaning that most of the others should be temporarily safe. After all, it wasn't easy hunting for prey in the Gobi Desert. They should rather savor them instead of eating everyone in one go. Xie Lian cleared his thoughts, but next to him, someone else couldn't hold their breath any longer. Ever since they reached the top of the Sinner's Pit, besides San Lang who looked like nothing was out of the ordinary, everyone else was shivering in fear, especially Zhao. He must have thought that if he was to die, he'd go down fighting. He closed his fists and ran towards Kamo. This rush looked as if Zhao was ready to bring Kamo down into the pit with him. Kamo was the bigger man, strong like a steel tower, but even he got pushed back 3 steps from Zhao's desperation. He roared in anger, and instantly threw the young man into the dark void. Everyone started screaming, and Xie Lian called after him too. "Zhao!" Just then, from deep within the chasm came a roaring cheer, and sounds of violent ripping of flesh, like starving beasts fighting for their only meal. It was easy to understand from hearing the noises that the young man Zhao would never survive. Xie Lian did not expect this development and was stunned too. He was suspicious that Zhao was a subordinate of the Banyu head priestess, purposely leading travelers astray to the ruins. He was also suspicious that the one who was here 50 to 60 years ago was him, but the young man ended up being the first to get killed. Was he faking his own death? It's not impossible. But now that they were all enslaved under the control of the Banyu soldiers, if Zhao was the head priestess subordinate, he'd have the upper hand and could very well reveal his true identity in glory without doing anything extra and fake his own death. But why would Zhao rush towards Kamo and die a meaningless death? Xie Lian's thoughts were in knots again, and the Banyu soldiers began searching for the next victim. Kamo sized them up and pointed at Tian Sheng. Another soldier then moved up and opened his palm, ready to push. Terrified, Tian Sheng fell to the ground on his knees and cried, "Save me!" Without any time to think, Xie Lian stepped forward and said using Banyuanese, "Hold on, General." Kamo was shocked to hear the words from Xie Lian's mouth and waved his hand, stopping the soldiers. "You know how to speak our tongue? Where are you from?" "I'm a Midlander," Xie Lian replied. He wouldn't have minded lying and say he was also a citizen of Banyu, but with how rusty his fluency was, there was no way he could keep up the lie if he conversed too much. Besides, it was also obvious from his looks that he was a Midlander. Kamo's question was only from simple confusion. The people of Banyu also detest liars more than anything. If Xie Lian was found out, the results would be worst. But there are also benefits to telling the truth. The Banyu kingdom fell to the hands of Midlanders. Hearing that Xie Lian was a Midlander, Camo's black face immediately flashed with rage, and many of the Banyu soldiers also started growling, cursing vulgarly at him. It wasn't much more than vile Midlanders, and throw him down, and Xie Lian couldn't care less. But he also heard, bitch, and paused. He didn't catch what was said before that, but it still made him feel a bit glum. The first few I could understand, but that last one was rather out of the blue. Are they sure they didn't get something wrong? Xie Lian thought dejectedly, as the general at Camo wasn't as agitated and said, our kingdom disappeared in the Gobi Desert for over 200 years. You are not of our people. Why do you know our tongue? Who are you? If he's going to play falsities, then it was time to start bullshitting. Xie Lian couldn't help but steal a glance at the calm boy behind him, mentally hoping that if his lies fall apart later, maybe he could shamelessly ask San Lang to save him. He cleared his throat and was ready to start gabbering nonsense when another series of enraged growls sounded from below. It seemed that whatever it was down in the pit had finished ripping apart a Jiao but was still hungry for more, using their cries to convey their thirst for fresh blood. Camo waved his hand again, ready to have Tian Sheng thrown over, so Xie Lian spoke up. General, please take me first. Camo had never heard anyone request to go first, and his eyes bulged like bells. He asked in disbelief, you go first. Why? Xie Lian couldn't tell him the truth and say because he wasn't scared. He thought for a second and came up with a logical answer. General, those are innocent merchants. There's even a child. Camo sneered. When your army annihilated my kingdom, did you not think we also had innocent merchants and children? The fall of the Banyu kingdom was over 200 years ago and dynasties in the Midlands had changed already, but hatred and grudges would not fade with the change in dynasties. Camo continued. You're very suspicious. I will need to question you. You are not going down. Throw in another one. There was no helping it. Xie Lian was ready to jump if all else fails anyway. Behind them San Lang stepped forward. Xie Lian's heart lurched and turned around. With his arms crossed, the boy was nonchalantly looking over the dark bottomless pit with an air of intrigue. This wasn't a good sign, and Xie Lian called out, San Lang. Hearing his call, San Lang looked over and smiled softly. Don't worry. San Lang took another step forward and was teetering dangerously on the edge. Both Xie Lian's head and heart started pounding, and he called again. Wait, San Lang, don't move. At such height at the brink, the boy's red clothes danced in the night breeze. San Lang glanced at him again with a smile. Don't be scared. Come back here. Come back here and I won't be scared, Xie Lian said. Don't worry, I'm just going to leave for a bit, San Lang said. Don't. Before he finished, the boy leapt with his arms still crossed, and disappeared into the abyss. The moment he jumped, Rui shot out from Xie Lian's wrist, a stream of white flash trying to grab hold of the boy's form. Yet the drop was too swift, and Rui returned without even a sleeve corner. Xie Lian fell to his knees at the edge of the wall and yelled. San Lang. No response. No noise. After the boy jumped there was not a single noise. Next to him, many of the Banyu soldiers started yelling instead, all dumbfounded and bewildered. What was with today? In the past they had to catch their prey and throw them into the pit before they fall, but tonight their prey took turns fighting to jump down themselves, and when held back they'd jump anyway. General Camo yelled to get his soldiers under control. As for Xie Lian, when he saw Rui didn't catch San Lang, he didn't take the time to think before taking a leap off the wall himself. But when his body was still in midair, he felt his collar tighten, and he stayed in midair. Turns out when General Camo saw he also jumped, he stretched out his arm and nabbed Xie Lian by the collar and prevented his fall. If you wanna join me, that's fine too, Xie Lian thought, and like a snake, Rui shot out once more and wrapped itself up the arm of Camo, and roped his body whole. Mo saw that the white silk band was unpredictably deadly and spirited, contorted his face and popped his veins. His muscles instantly burst in size, trying to rip apart the fabric tying him down. Xie Lian was at a standstill with Mo when he saw something eerie in the corner of his eyes. The corpse that was hung on the pole moved, and slightly raised her head. The band of Ban Yu soldiers also saw the corpse move and started yelling, swinging their maces to attack it. But the black-clad girl somehow untied herself and hopped off the pole, and sped towards the two. She was like a black wind blowing through the eaves, fast and wicked. The soldiers couldn't maintain their balance and soon were swept into the sinner's pit one by one, screaming. Enraged, Mo screamed all sorts of vulgarities at her, many of which were street slangs that Xie Lian couldn't understand well, but he did understand the first words. "It's that bitch again." The swearing ceased in the next moment because Xie Lian suddenly pulled, and brought Mo to fall into the pit together. The inescapable sinner's pit. While falling, Mo roared with such violence, killing Xie Lian's eardrums. He had to call Rui back and gave Mo a kick to get the general further away from himself and protect his ears. Then he urged Rui to fly upwards to try and grab hold of anything that can prevent him from falling further. Or if anything, grab hold of something so that when he falls it wouldn't be too painful. But the sinner's pit was not built to save. And with such a powerful array at work, there was nothing Xie Lian could find a hold. He thought he was going to crater and flatten like a pancake like many times before when suddenly, in the darkness, there was a flash of silver. A pair of hands lightly caught him. Whoever it was caught him perfectly, as if this person was made just to catch him at the bottom. With a hand across his back to grasp his shoulders, another under his knees to support his weight, the dreadful gravity of the fall was dissolved to nothing. Still dazed and confounded from falling at such a height, Xie Lian unconsciously held on tight to that person's shoulders and called, "San Lang." The pit was filled with darkness, nothing could be seen, including the person. But Xie Lian still called that name. The other didn't respond, so Xie Lian patted and squeezed the chest and shoulders just to make sure. "San Lang, is that you?" Maybe it was because here at the bottom of the pit the smell of blood was heavy and disorienting. Xie Lian dazedly continued to feel up the person holding him, until he reached a strong, hard Adam's apple. He was shocked and immediately reprimanded himself, pulling his hands back. What was he doing? "Is it San Lang? Are you alright? Are you hurt?" It took a moment before he heard the boy's low voice from very close to him. "I'm okay." Xie Lian didn't know why, but this voice was curiously different than before. Translator's notes. Hanzi is the Chinese equivalent of kanji, recognized as the formal Chinese character writing but originated from the Midlands. End chapter.